Alright, the purpose of this video is to walk through the steps for the second portion, Analysis 2 of Lab 2. Now the starting point for this exercise is your business points projected into state plane. You should have already done that for Analysis 1. And then we're going to add to that, in this exercise, some information about the context. We're going to take a look at where your business points are and what the socio-demographic characteristics of your region and then a smaller study area right around your business points are. So just to look at the workflow to sort of set this up, our starting point is going to be a set of counties that I've given you in the Lab 2 data file that you yourself have projected into state plane. That's where I'm going to start here. So if you haven't already projected that file into state plane, do so before you begin following this exercise. And the same goes for a set of census tracts. And finally, there is a data table. Now, this isn't a shapefile. It isn't spatial. It's just a two-dimensional flat data file that we're going to join to the tracts so that we have more information about those tracts. Now, just to anticipate what this looks like, here is in the workflow an illustration of the files I give you. And here below it is where we're headed. So here's an entire region, the Mid-Atlantic region from Virginia up to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, all of the counties and all of the tracts in that region. And from that I have extracted a 3-county region surrounding the locations of my business points in Montgomery County, Maryland. So my region contains Montgomery, Prince George's, and the District of Columbia. Now ultimately, that's going to be a set of objects you're going to need to complete this work, and the purpose of this video is to show you how to get from here to here. Now, looking at that same information in ARC, the first thing I've done in ARC, and the first thing I urge you to do in ARC always, is to open up ARC Catalog View so that you can see your data. So I can see my business points, I can look at their geography, they're projected into state plane. I could check that if I'm not sure by right-clicking on properties and looking at the spatial reference, and aha, they're in state plane. I urge you to do the same thing with your files before you begin. And again, I'm going to be working with the state plane projected version of Mid-Atlantic counties, so you can see what they look like. I don't have the original version of this, but to compare the tracts, this is what I give you, Mid-Atlantic tracts POP. And the projected version of that looks like this. So you can kind of see for yourself that those two files look different if you flip back and forth. So in this exercise, I'm going to be working with counties, tracts. I'm just holding down my control key and grabbing all of these, and that demography file. And I'm going to right click on this and just say add to new map. So I'm going to create a new map with these objects in it, and I think I'll name that map. Returning to the workflow for just a moment, I want to walk through, in big picture way, what we're going to do next. So here, first, I'm going to take the counties and turn them into a subregion, just the 3 counties surrounding my business points. Then I'm going to prepare the census tracts the same way. I'm going to find just the census tracts that are within that 3-county region. And again, your 3-county region probably will be different from my 3-county region because it's determined by the locations of your business points. So your results may vary visually from mine, but they will be analogous. So once you've got your 3-county region defined, you're going to use it to define to extract all of the tracts, census tracts within that 3-county region. But before you do that step, you're going to make some changes to the data table itself. So for example, in the data table I give you, you'll have the number of people who are foreign born, how many people in each census tract were born outside of the United States. You also have the total population of each census tract. So if you divide foreign born by POP, you get percent foreign born. I'm going to show you how to do that, how to generate several additional measures. And the instructions for this are in the workflow, but I show you how to calculate percent male, percent foreign born, percent non-white, and population density. So those are all things you are going to calculate before defining your 3-county set of tracts. And so in the workflow, starting on page 14, you're going to take all the tracks within the 3-county region that have all those attributes that you've just created and turn that into a regional set of tracks. And that's the process. That's the set of steps that we're going to walk through. Returning then to ArcPro, our first step is going to be to define a set of counties, the counties that are nearest your business point location. I'm going to use a function that helps us, that answers the question, which objects are closest to our business tracks. Now for now, I'm just working with these mid-Atlantic counties, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And basically what we're asking Arc to tell us is, of all of these polygons, and they're like, I don't know, 1,000 of them, I can't remember how many, all the counties in the region, which are the 3 that are closest to that set of points. Now the way it's actually going to do this, because that set of points is 41 different points, because that's how many businesses I observed in downtown Kensington, it's actually going to calculate this for each of the 41 points. So my result of this will be a table called a near table, a table that identifies the objects that are nearest. And it'll have 41 times 3, so 123 objects in it, because I'm putting in 41 points. It's going to show me for each point the 3 counties that are closest to it. It's a little convoluted, but it'll be the same for all 41 points. It'll just be a bigger table than I need. So to do this, I'm going to go up to the Analysis menu at the top of your window, and then click Tools, and I'm going to use a tool called Generate Near Table. The idea here is I'm putting in my business points from Kensington, and I'm putting in mid-Atlantic counties, and then very carefully here, I'm going to find my folder where I'm saving stuff, because I don't want to save it anywhere else, and say Near Table as the name, and make sure that it's going to the right location by clicking that folder. I'm getting this little warning sign because I've already created a file with this name, and it's just making sure I know that. I'm going to limit the search to 50 miles, 50 survey miles. And then the important thing is I'm going to deselect this Find Only Closest feature, because I want to find the 3 closest features, and then I'll say Run. Now when you run this, you may get an error. If that's true, it could be because you're processing this off of your Google Drive. If that happens, send the output file to a local drive. If you're working on a lab computer, the drive inside the machine, or if you're working on your own computer, your C drive. Sometimes Google Drive is limited in terms of what it will process for you. Now without warning, you'll see the Generate Near Table has produced this table. It's not a shapefile, so you can't look at it on the map. You have to open it and then you can just see the table. Now what this is telling me, the way to read this table is these 3 lines relate to object 0 from my points shapefile. These 3 lines relate to object 1 of my point shapefile. So I'm looking at this NFID. Now what does that mean? Well, if I look at my points shapefile, my business points, over here on the far left-hand side, there's an automatically generated ID number that Arc creates whenever you make a shapefile called a feature ID. So it's a unique number. Every object in the shapefile has a unique FID number, which makes it really handy for this purpose. So what that near table is showing me then is the nearest FID, or the FID numbers for the nearest 3 counties to point 0, and they are 157, 54, and 90. And the nearest 3 for point 1, which are the same 3, 157, 54, and 90. And if I go all the way through this table, I'll see that for each location, each of my 41 points, it's identifying the same 3 counties as being closest. That could potentially be untrue for you. In which case you'd have to decide. If you have any questions about running this operation, of course, reach out to us. Now what I need to know then is these 3 numbers. I'm going to write them down, 157, 54, and 90. What that's going to enable me to do, let me write them down before I forget, 157, 54, and 90. And now what I'm going to do is right-click on Counties and go to Data, Export Features. This allows me to take all or some of the counties and export the ones I want to as a new shapefile. So I'll say Export Features. I'm going to export this object that I'm creating. I'm going to name it region counties. And you might notice I just clicked on it so I wouldn't have to type the whole thing. It puts the name down in the name bar. But I'm creating an object called region counties. This is going to be my study region, the 3 counties nearest my business points. And to export only those, I'm going to create a filter where FID is equal to 157, or is really important here. FID is equal to 54. Now I'm typing in those 3 FID numbers that show up in the near table, identifying the 3 counties closest to 157, 54, and 90. That's what I have here. That shows me the 3 counties closest to my business points. And you can kind of see they flash there. I'm going to turn these off. And this is my new object. It's the 3 county region surrounding my points. So we've done the first part. We've defined our study region as those 3 counties. And now I need to do the same. I want to grab all of these smaller geographies, census tracts, that are contained within those 3 counties. And now you might be asking, why are we doing this? And the reason is we're going to look at the pattern of various different socio-demographic features like population density and income distributed across the entire region, that 3 county region, and we're going to compare that to conditions locally, immediately surrounding the business points that I've studied. Now that process is going to run in 2 steps, and if you look at the workflow document, you'll see this begins on page 11. First, what we do is join this demographic table called Mid-Atlantic Tracts Demography to our tract shapefile, and then we'll make some calculations in that I'll describe here. And then we're going to select the tracts that we want to work with, just the ones inside those black lines. So the first step of this is a join. Now the way a join works is you can add any data you want to a shapefile as long as you have the means to get it into the shapefile. Now the way we're going to do that is here, each row, each of the 10,314 tracts in the region has an 11-digit number. That 11-digit number works like this. The first 2 digits identify the state that tract is in. The next 3 digits, 001 in this case, identify the county. And then the 6 remaining digits identify the tract. So within the tract ID, we also have a state and county ID. We're going to exploit that in a little while. But first, the fact that this has this 10-digit ID at all means that if we take a look at that census, the Mid-Atlantic tract shapefile, you'll see that it also has this very same 11-digit number. So what we're going to do is use this common information, this common field as a key to join the table to the shapefile. And it works like this. When you join data, you always start with the shapefile, not with the data table. And so I right-click on it, go to Joins and Relates, and say Add Join. It's then going to ask me what field I want to use as the basis for that join. You have to have a field that has exactly the same information in it, or you'll get null values. It'll just say the join, nothing got joined. And so when I fill this out just like this, I'll say OK, and then when I look at that Mid-Atlantic Tracts data table, it now has all of the fields from Mid-Atlantic Tracts demography. You'll see OID, GOID, name. All of these fields have been joined to this data table based on which tract ID they have. So we've got 10,314 tracts, and now we've got all this demographic information about them. The only thing is a join command is temporary. So to make that join permanent, I'm going to right-click on this file and go to Data, Export Features. This time, I'm going to export all of them. So I'm going to click on this folder and find the location. Make sure I'm saving this to my Lab 2 folder. I'm going to name this Mid-Atlantic Tracts Demog, and that is the name I suggest you give it as well, so that we have consistent results. So Mid-Atlantic Tracts Demography. I'll say OK. And now I'm going to have a file that looks exactly like the old one. There it is, Mid-Atlantic Tracts Demography, except now that new file has all of those attributes in it. So if I look at the attribute table, I'll see that all of those new things have been joined.